Let's take a look at the multi-year incubator known as Cardano. Information and charts for BraveNewCoin. So Cardano is currently a proof-of-stake blockchain with incoming smart contracts in a September upgrade hard fork known as Alonzo. I have not seen as much PR and hype for anything as I have for Cardano lately. Always a great warning sign. Specifically this curious headline, Cardano launches in Japan. Bunch of gobbledygook about tight regulations, blah, blah, blah. And here we are, written by yours truly in October 2018. ADA was developed, or at least started to in 2015. So 6 years later, we finally have smart contracts. And they did a pre-sale for vouchers, most of which in Japan. So I don't really know what the, maybe the legal definition of launching in Japan, but it's a bit weird, I guess. Now, I don't know if these articles specifically go into the details about the pre-sale originally mostly being done through Japanese investors. Unsure, but it's weird. It's very weird that that is the chosen word choice. So they do have smart contracts coming, which I said in the opener. Yeah, I mean, until they're here, I can't really comment much on them. I can't look at DApp Radar. I can't look at TVL for anything. You know, you can't look at any of that stuff because it doesn't exist yet. So when it's here, we can look at stuff and things, and when it's on its way, we can speculate on price, but can't really do much in between that. Here's IOHK saying on August 27th, it's ready for testnet or went live on testnet. They have a countdown. Target is September 12th. So I'd look to price, you know, if you're actively trading this around that date. Could be a buy the rumor, sell the news type thing. Just something to keep in mind. ADA is proof of stake currently 70% currently being staked, which tells me there isn't much else to do with ADA at the moment. This is more of a Tezos-like staking that I can tell, not so much an EOS-like staking, in that it's fairly well distributed with randoms. I mean, right, like I don't need to know who any of these people are. I don't want to see Binance and Coinbase and Kraken and any other exchanges, Bitfinex, at the top of these lists. I want to see decentralization in people and places so that there isn't a regulatory risk, an act of God risk, a conflict of interest risk. I don't want to see any of that. So from that perspective, ADA looks to be okay. Active staking wallets increasing with price here recently. So that's definitely playing a role post May 18th when everything sort of crumbled. Staking wallets increasing dramatically from lows, basically doubling from 20K to 40K, and new wallets doubling and then some as well. So pretty clear to me what's going on with price in that respect. You're just soaking up more and more of the supply, whether it's being done because of XYZ roadmap stuff. I don't know. I don't think that really matters, but that's what the data is showing as far as the staking stuff. And the adjusted reward after inflation is around 1.6%, 1.7. So again, unless you're bullish ADA, if you're a community member, you don't care about the reward. But if you're agnostic about the chain, you're probably just going to collect interest with USDC on something, on ETH probably, right? Because that's a better non-volatile asset to hold and collect interest against. Now, if you're bullish ADA, if you're bullish Dash, whatever, you're going to buy and hold that because you're just getting interest on top of upside potential. On-chain stats for transaction counts are at all-time highs, and they've continued to lift off since ADA's gone proof of stake. And I've seen, again, so much hype and fluff and people who don't know anything about crypto talking about ADA. So it's no surprise that that's what I'm seeing on chain. You're getting a bunch of new people, new money with integer bias, people who don't necessarily know better, people seeing all this PR and stuff. I'm not saying ADA can't be successful. And if you're happy to buy an incubator in its early stages, 6 years out of its initial development, by all means, who am I to tell you otherwise? But just as long as you're informed, really that's all I care about. Average transaction values on the rise again, but nothing too crazy. And again, it'll be interesting to see what happens to transactions after September 12th. Do they just keep mooning or do they slow down after that news hits? NVT at lows and declining, so that's bullish. Active addresses very near all-time highs, kind of matching those staking wallets, active wallet addresses chart since the proof of stake stuff. You can't really look at this pre and post proof of stake the same. It's just a different network. So of course, active addresses are going to be much higher than they were previously when there wasn't anything to do with ADA before. It went from 5 years, 6 years of doing nothing with ADA to, oh, now we have proof of stake. And now next step's going to be, oh, we have smart contracts, right? So active addresses are going to continue to look different over time. And until the chain normalizes in innovation, you can't really say like, oh, this is so much more bullish than it ever was, right? It's just, well, the change is different. So it's hard to really say which is which here. And MVRV, which for most coins tops out at 2, meaning 2 times on-chain activity or 2 times market cap relative to on-chain activity. Currently, MVRV is 2.2. So either on-chain activity increases substantially to drop MVRV, or market cap comes down relative to on-chain activity, or MVRV is just a meaningless metric for ADA, which I don't think is the case. Now this thing has gone higher in the past to around 2.75. Then you had a bit of a bearish divergence on MVRV relative to price here. So we very well may see that again, where we see MVRV come down with price coming up. Bearish, bullish, I don't know what that is necessarily, but it's a divergence, definitely. I'd pay attention to that. Going forward, that may take, previously it took, 6 months, 5 months? So that may take us into like February 2022 when this thing's at $10, I don't know, but it's worth just continually monitoring and watching over time. This thing also has its tentacles into Grayscale in the digital large cap fund. It doesn't have a solo trust, but it is listed in the large cap fund at 6% of the total fund. It is also in the Bitwise 10 at 6% of the total fund. My guess is Grayscale launched the large cap fund in response to the Bitwise 10, but one may come before the other. I don't know. They're very similar for the most part. Google Trends are actually quite bullish for Cardano. Again, echoing, I'm seeing Call of Duty streamers talk about Cardano. Just the weirdest intersections of people talking about Cardano. So it makes sense that this thing is rising on Google Trends, rising in price, new money, new entrants, hype, the usual stuff that you see when you need Google Trends to rise and price to be bullish. So no surprise, prices at all-time highs with Google Trends screaming higher and seeing all this PR about Cardano everywhere. And the easiest thing you can always do is take the high, take the low, get your 50% and your 1618 measure move levels. So it's way past the 50%, way past the previous all-time highs. And it's reaching for 3 to 360 currently. So this thing is outperforming a lot of stuff that is still kind of stuck below all-time highs. ETH, BTC, LTC probably, right? A lot of other proof of work stuff. So that's also helping fuel the hype machine. So I'd look to see how this reacts to those levels, specifically into September 12th, 13th, somewhere around there, to see if this thing slows down a little bit. On the 1-year MA, green line is the 1-year MA here. The red is 5 times that, and the white is the midline between the two. So it's currently above the midline. It didn't quite retrace to the buy zone on that dip. It was in the sell zone multiple times on the previous highs. So the current high is probably somewhere around 460 as far as a be careful overbought zone. And a lot of this is dependent on what happens post September 12th. Saying you have smart contracts and then saying and developing and getting a community to use them is another story. So that may take some time. It's definitely bullish for any chain to have increased capabilities and use cases. So I'd certainly watch for that in the future. But in the near term, if this thing gets anywhere close to 4, I'm out based on this indicator. Not that I trade ADA in any capacity, but that would be something I would be watching. On the 5200, it's been bullish since mid-2020. Bounced on the 200 every time this thing dipped down. Currently, it's decently far away from the 200-day moving average, but doesn't look dangerously far for a retrace as far as potential is concerned. R5 yearly pivot is all the way down here at 70 cents. Most of the volume historically It's all the way down here at 17 cents or lower. So eventually this thing will retrace. Again, this may take us to February 2022. I don't know. But when it does, it's probably going sub $1. It's probably going to go maybe to a quarter, right? I don't know. If we look at this BTC chart, this is a crazy chart because it was acting very Doge-like for a few years and then acting Doge-like again, just a mega 10x plus breakout, currently at 6K sats after it went proof of stake. So the Ponzi took off for sure in January this year, along with everything else. Back to the USD pair for a second. On the daily cloud, $2 looks like a Kijun buy area, and it just exploded after the Kumo breakout at $1.60, $1.70 in early August. Kind of M double toppy there on the daily. The 12-hour also likes 212 as a buy zone. So I think you're either just full bore buying this thing until September 12th, or you're waiting for a pullback and then seeing what happens on September 12th or 11th or the 13th. I don't know, somewhere around that date, just to see what happens with price. But trend still looks bullish. Looks bullish against BTC, obviously. It bounced on the 200 in July. Pretty big bear div on this currently. Most of the volume has been sub 1400 sats. This thing just kind of exploded out of this multi-year inverted head and shoulders. And it's currently at the 3618. I mean, this thing just extended. And when it was up here last time, kind of at like ICO mania, it eventually took it 2 years, but eventually basically crumbled to zero. That's probably unlikely to happen this time because of additional use cases and hype cycle stuff around smart contracts. They're going to have NFTs, I'm sure, DEXs, swaps, blah, 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 right? They're just going to copy everything everybody else has, which is fine, but that's going to certainly help price keep it afloat. That's going to build a community, build a holder mentality, especially if they can keep fees relatively low, which is part of the reason why Solana and AVAX and these other layer ones have done so well recently, is because ETH fees remained high relative to other chains. We saw what happened with BSC a few months ago when fees were low there versus high on Ethereum. So I've definitely watched that relative to the ADA ETH chart. If things can happen on Cardano, cheaper, better, faster, stronger than ETH, then yeah, there's a risk there for ETH to innovate or die, to price people out or die. It just becomes a rich man's chain at that point, and you're pricing out that new money that needs to help keep price afloat. So technicals look bullish on this, but super volatile historically since 2018, just all over the place. I wouldn't trade this directly, certainly. Just it's way too bipolar, but it does look bullish on trend. Lastly, I'll just mention ETH BTC Fund and DeFi Portfolio. I trade for Techme Capital on Enzyme.finance, a non-custodial portfolio management tool where you can send ETH or USDC or just watch what I'm doing. You can see everything, including AUM performance, allocation, where I'm collecting yield in various vaults on Yearn, Comp, and Aave, as well as all the deposits down here in the deposits tab, and trades in the trades tab. That's all for this one. Like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe, and happy trading.